like when most people think of 3D printing, they tend to think of the most complex things when in reality, I, yeah, you can get complex with it. Yeah, you can make very functional, intricate looking items, and that can be daunting. But I don't think you should let that fear inhibit you from at least learning more about it or trying to create something within the space, right? You know, you shouldn't let that stop you from at least trying to learn something new. And for me as an artist, when I first got into 3D printing, well, first the first interactions I had with a 3D printer were in high school, taking 3D printing classes, and they had Prusa's back then. But 3D printing has long changed since then. And the first printer I was given was, or used, really, that I could say was mine, was from my uncle. And he wasn't using his, and him knowing me and how I am with just any type of gadget, machinery, or something, he was like, here, try this and see what comes of it. And flash forward, I now have a print farm, teach 3D printing, and use it in my day-to-day life for creativity and a lot of aspects, right? To the point where it's now a personality trait of mine. But all that goes to say is that there was a point where I didn't know anything about 3D printing at all. I didn't know what an STL was. I didn't know how to slice a file and all this stuff that goes with it, right? But I had a willingness to learn, and I put myself out there and faced it head on, right? With that mindset, I was able to take those failed projects and the successes and make it my own thing and use what I've already learned in my creative process and my day-to-day and find a way to fuse this machinery, these machines, with my intellect, with my mind, with my just way of being and thinking, right? And I'm grateful for the ability to create with these machines, right? They're to me, and after using them for a while, I feel like they're a reflection of me as a creative. Mainly because they're very versatile. When you look at the different things you can create with them, you're in shock, you're in awe. And because it's like, wow, all this can come from this one thing, this one machine, this one like piece of metal, really. Like, it's cool to think that layer by layer, line by line, it builds into something that you create, something that you can develop. And you can, get files online and make your own planter that you got from Thingiverse, or make your own, cup holder that you downloaded from MakerWorld, or something that you bought online. But I think the true value comes in, and that true creativity is when you can sit back and just make a idea come to life that was your own. And it can be from the simplest thing. It can be from a guitar pick to a fully functioning, tray and lid holder, or like art cover palette. Something simple. And then speaking towards like the function, right? Boom, make this. You can make a piece like this, yeah. You can make something to solve a problem. This broke, so I fixed it, made a stand for it. But I want it to be, and what I've used it for is for more creative expression. To me, these are tools, these are vessels of thought, and I don't think, well, at least now, it kind of has a low barrier to entry, because if you have a Wi-Fi connection and you can start 3D designing. If you have a Wi-Fi connection and $200, let's say a good $250 for the filament and everything, you can start 3D printing. So at that point, I feel like it's up to you to make the best of it, because if you're willing to learn and put yourself out there, then the path will make it. Well, no, I don't even want to say make itself. The path will arise, even if that means you have to shovel a couple pieces of dirt out the way. The path will be there, and on that journey, you'll pick up a bunch of tools, a bunch of knowledge, and there's value in that knowledge. You should keep pressing on to have more knowledge, because learning is key. The more you learn these machines, the more you learn whatever software you choose, and you can choose a mix of softwares. It really does not matter. Like, you do not have to kind of limit yourself to one, but start with one, and then understand it. The more you understand it, the more you will grow. You will, 100%. And for me, I started on Tinkercad. I feel like that's most people who start into the 3D printing world. They start on Tinkercad or Blender, and then you start developing into other softwares that you can 3D model with. For me, because I like the artistic approach towards things, and I think it's a good tool for expression, I tend to lean towards having Nomad Sculpt and Tinkercad be my primary options for printing. But there's other apps that you can use. I like using iPad-friendly apps. So mainly because iPads are portable. There's times where you have an idea on the go and you just want to make it right then and there. That's why Nomad Sculpt or Tinkercad, they come in handy. And then there's Shaper 3D or SketchUp. Those are also good tools to use. Then you have, more desktop apps. The desktop apps are like Fusion 360, Blender, Rhino 3D, and there's different use cases for these said apps, softwares too. So I'd say for a more technical and, architectural approach, engineer approach, you'd use like a Rhino 3D. Well, no, but for an engineer, you more likely use SolidWorks, right? So it's just about what you're trying to do with it and your end goal. For me, my end goal is creating some art, creating something functional, creating something artistic, and then something that would help me kind of like create. Just like, I don't know, I like to be able to have another tool to add to that belt. And if I can have this and it can help me to like my best like chance of making something cooler than what I did yesterday, cool, sign me up. And that's what 3D printing is. And I started on a long maker. I want to say it was a 5 or Pro 5 or something like that. Can't quite think of the full name. And then, you know, dabbled with Prusas, but I definitely like these printers more. The ones that you see right here. The brand is Bambu Lab. They're a good brand. They're a team of ex-DJI engineers, so they know a good sense into like the tech space. And they really revamped, to me, the 3D space and the 3D industry, because these printers are fast. They're fast, and they're also this is one of the bigger ones, like I would say medium-sized ones, because now there's the H2D and the H2S, which is just like insane big body printers, right? And they're cool. I really like those printers, and I will get those printers. I will get that printer. I will get that printer at some point in time. I will have my hands on that printer and be able to create with it. But for right now, I have these, and they're sufficient. They do it. They get the job done. I like them because they're like the Apple for 3D printers. They're very user friendly. There's an app that you use to control it, so it's just straightforward, ready to go. Bamboo Handy is the app, and there's a space, a community of people who own the printers that whatever they create, they can upload it to the software for others to print, and that's called Maker World. And very straightforward process. If you like the print, you see the print, you press the green button and you print it. Pick your printer, because you don't even have to be next to the printer to print with the printer. You can be in Dubai, and as long as you have Wi-Fi, you can connect to the printer. And as long as these printers are connected to Wi-Fi, you can print with them. And that's another ease, the use. You don't have, they auto calibrate. Like, they'll tell you if it's missing filament, and they just won't ghost print. It'll tell you, it has so many sensors, it has a camera, so you can just monitor your print and see like, oh, what's messing up, just in case it doesn't tell you and you just want to print and look at it. Like, it's really cool. And like, this was one of the first printers I got with them. I started with the A1 Mini. Mainly because, well, desktop printer, portable, and just overall a good tool. I got this one in particular because I was like, you know, this is cool little printer. I like that it's portable. I can take it with me. It can fit in a bag, and I can just print on the go. And just the same aspects of like all the other printers that Bambu Lab makes is packed into this one too. Like the same motor as like the A1 that you see back there. It's the same one you see on this A1 Mini right here, and same speed. It prints really fast too. It makes a Benchy, which is like the standard print that tests like overhangs and like calibration of the printer and whatnot. Prints a Benchy on the fast mode in 7 minutes. If you standard time, it takes 20. But in comparison to when I was printing a Benchy with my Prusa, the Lawn Maker, that was like a 30-minute process alone. So the fact that it's already something very easy to use, quick, means that my ideas get out quicker. And when you have more printers like I do, it kind of multiplies those ideas, so you can make more things. And just all the requests that I get, a bunch of requests that, oh hey, can you make me this, can you make me that? I'm like, yeah, I can. And then it got to the point, at first I started with one, and then I was like, okay, everyone keeps asking me to make them stuff, and I was like, okay, well this is gonna, certain things would take 8 hours, and you know the 8 hours and on one bill plate wasn't gonna cut it. So I was like, okay, let me get another one. And then I got another one, and then I was like, okay, well, let me get this one. And then I got that one, and I had 3 A1s, so, A1 minis. And then it just got to the point I was like, oh, let me get an A1, and then I just, yeah. And I don't really know what else to say other than definitely like 3D printing a lot. It's allowed me to give my creativity a boost and just versatility, and it makes me feel more of a Swiss Army creative because I've tapped into so many different worlds because of this, right? I made a car part like twice. I made 2 different car parts on separate occasions because of the ability to 3D print. And both times I made the car parts were just, people were like, okay, this person is selling it on this website for X amount of dollars, can you do it for cheaper? And I was like, yeah, I could do it for cheaper. I would look at it, see, okay, what do they do? How the model look or whatever. And it'd be something semi-complex, right? Like one time it was for, I want to say, oh yeah, it was for a Mini Cooper. He ordered a part for this Mini Cooper from this German site, but he didn't want to pay again for like the shipping and the cost, and he already had to wait a long time. But he got the wrong part. Like they only sent him one of the 2 ends. So we had the first model, and this was even before I had my 3D scanner and everything. Before I started like really knowing, okay, this is the different tools you can use to replicate items. I really just went in that thing with my caliper, measured every aspect of it, looked at every hole it had, and to the T, like in Tinkercad, modeling it to the best of my ability, and it worked, and that it was a perfect fit. And that taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about just the Tinkercad software, how to really use it to mold and get to the things you want to accomplish. And although it may seem like a basic software to use, you can really get complex things out of it. You could really innovate in cool ways. So that was really just added to the learning curve and helped me as a lesson to feel more confident in creating more intricate designs. And then I had another person reach out, and for his BMW, his E30, he wanted I believe it was the back plate for a tail light or something, if I'm not mistaken. I don't quite remember, but I just remember the file that he, not like the website link he sent me, and he was with the picture, and he was like, yeah, can you make this? And off that photo, went in and did my thing, and it was a perfect fit. And what surprised me too is I asked him for the dimensions of everything, like, okay, what was it? And then he was like, well, it was like 7x3. I did it in Tinkercad, put those measurements in, and mind you, I'm modeling it off of what I see, so I'm not really specifically measuring it to as if I had my 3D scanner or something like that, right? So to my surprise, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to make multiple iterations and constantly like get the thing to work. It works off the first rip, and he's like, "Oh, this is a great fit. Like I need another one." And I was able to print him another one because the hard part is that file, right? Once you design it, once you have the file, you can print as many as you like, and there's a beauty in that, right? You can just have an idea, start the idea, and it kind of can continually produce as long as you want it to. And yeah, and it all starts with this little machine, like this little machine or this big machine. And the only main difference is the build plates, like, and these are build plates. So pretty much, this is a bigger build plate of the A1, and this is a smaller build plate of the A1 Mini. They're both magnetic. They're magnetic and they stick onto the bed plate. They stick onto the bed. This is the bed. It's the bed of the printer. But yeah, they stick onto the bed of the printer, and you just connect it like that. Make sure that it's aligned though. You don't want to make sure it's off, because sometimes when it's off, this metal piece, like the size of it, can ride up against this right here, and that's no bueno. It also can happen with this printer too, with the A1. Like if you put it a little bit too close to the edge, it'll ride up against the screen, like the LCD screen. So you don't want that to happen. So just look out for that whenever you're putting like the build plate back on. But they have grooves already in the, like right here, that help you align it, so you should be good. But yeah, so this right here is the extruder, and if you don't know what an extruder is, simply it's just a really strong heater that heats up the filament, and it heats it up to specific temperatures depending on the type of filament you're using and the type and what you're printing. But if you're using, like, this is PLA, so PLA heats at around, it'll tell you too on here, like around 190 to 230 degrees Celsius, and that is dependent on the filament, right? Because that's already pretty hot. But if you have something like PETG is a more durable piece of plastic. Just it needs a hotter temperature to melt and slower time, but it'll be sturdier. Like it is very, very, very hard to break once you have it set. Then you have other filaments like TPU, which is like the more stretchier filament. So that's if you're trying to make like things like phone cases or like more like functional items. Like this is made out of TPU. And then if you see this too, if you see this right here, this like this like build plate, it's usually an indication that they use a bamboo printer, because bamboo, they have these textured plates, right? These textured plates are so cool because I don't know, it just gives a different look to the prints. It looks like official. It doesn't. I don't know. It's something about it to me that I just really, maybe I'm biased, and I just simply like that bamboo look. But you can get build plates that have like the smooth finish too, if that's not something you're looking for, and if you're not a fan of the textured look on 3D prints. But I am, so I'm just going to be using that. But TPU is a type of filament you can use mainly for doing things like this. This is the iPhone case for a 14 that I made. But yeah, so that's just one of the filaments you can use. You could also use like ABS, or ASA. Um, there's a list of filaments that you can use, all based on your use case. Like if you're trying to make car parts or something that needs more like heat resistance, you probably wouldn't use these printers unless it was more in like an enclosed space for safety concerns and just like overall like keeping the warping at a minimum. But yeah, as far as like other aspects of it, this is a good printer to really just start and deep dive with. So start with PLA though. I usually start with PLA because cost effective. They won't really like hurt the pockets that much. You can get a roll of filament for like 20 bucks. Then I would get, after you get the PLA goes through here. Boom. This is the extruder, heats it up, and it goes through the nozzle. The nozzle is right here. This is the nozzle. So pretty much it is a fine line of plastic that is being put out. Fine line of plastic that goes layer by layer, line by line. This line of plastic. And the dimensions of the plastic will tend to stay the same for 3D printers, which is 1.75 millimeters. But cool part about it, although you may have like the same amount of like the same size in filament, you can change the nozzle, and the nozzle tips have different sizes. So for instance, if I wanted to have, this is a 0.4 nozzle, that's like the standard nozzle, but if you wanted to have like a bigger nozzle, you can move to like a 0.6 or like a 0.8, and that 0.8 just makes like thicker lines. It's pretty cool. But that's just based on use case. So if that's something you're trying to do, you look into that. But right now, what comes with the printer is the 0.4 nozzle, the standard nozzle for most of the printers, if not all. But yeah, it comes to the nozzle and it builds layer by layer, line by line. And the cool part about this, at least PLA, is it's a bioplastic, which you're probably like, what does that mean? A bioplastic is essentially just a derivative of a plant, right? This comes from corn pellets. So PLA stands for polylactic acid. We produce lactic acid in our bodies, and lactic acid can also be found in things like corn. So pretty much they take corn and put it in like these pellets, and they ground it, and they make like PLA pellets, and you melt that, and then they add color, trying to make this as least long-winded as possible, right? So boom, it gets grounded up, and then they add the colors, and then it gets put in this fine line that you see, put on spools, and boom, you have your PLA. Yeah, so that's a type of filament that you can use that I'd recommend just starting with 3D printing, and then you would adapt depending on what you want to get into in the future. As far as anything else with the printer, with building and your first print, one thing I would say, just to avoid just having failed prints, is, I mean, they'll tell you if you need these or not, but it's called supports. And supports are basically things that are geared towards helping your 3D print succeed. And when you're in your slicer, a slicer is the software that you use to pretty much take your 3D model that you started with, and pretty much think of the 3D model as it's one language, and it's something that we build with. But then when it comes to making it go for a 3D printer, or creating something with a 3D printer, you have to turn it into another language, which is called G code. Now, G code is found within a slicer. Slicer, we call it that. A slicer is just a software that takes a 3D model and makes everything layer by layer, line by line. Now, because of that, you can use two different softwares. Cura is every brand of printer, they tend to have their own slicer, like dedicated for you to use. Like there's the Bamboo slicer, but then other printers have like Prusa slicer. Cura is just another slicer that's just you can use to get started with too. But you slice your print and you pretty much turn it into the G code, the layer line. So it goes from the STL, which STL is the standard format for 3D printing. There's like STL, which is like stereolithography, which really means, just think of it as like a JPEG of what's like for 3D printing. So you're taking that JPEG and then you're essentially turning it into like a PNG. So it's like a transparent image. So the PNG version of that would be, like a 3MF file, which is like a 3D model file. That's what it ends up saving as. It's like .gcode.3mf. So the 3D model file, put it in the slicer, and you get it to create. Once you have it in your slicer though, you have the option to print with or without these things called supports. Supports can be tree or they can be normal. Depending on what you're printing, go with tree supports. Like I prefer tree supports. I like tree supports because they're just easier to take off in the end. And normal supports can just be so just excruciating to just take off. Just like you can be sitting there and like just trying to don't let it be a detailed print too. Oh my gosh. Just print with the tree supports. And it may take a little extra time, but it'll do your print justice because it's just a smoother. It's providing the support it needs and also not causing you like a headache when you're trying to take it off. So I would definitely go with tree supports in terms of normal supports. And the reason they're called tree supports is because when you look at them, they look like roots of like the branches of trees. Because whatever your design is or whatever you're making, it'll build with it, but then layer by layer, line by line, and have those added beams of supports. But with normal supports, it takes the layer by layer, line by line to a different case. It really it goes and it'll build those supports wherever it needs it, but it'll put it'll heat it almost. I would say like a lower temperature, or makes it so it's not too close to the actual model. So you still build it, but you'll still take it off, but you still have like the remnants of the supports on it, as far as opposed to if you were gonna have the 3D print and tree supports, it would be very minimal to see, very minimal. So I would say go with tree supports. Print with the tree supports, and that's gonna just help you just in every case, most cases. But once you have the print, in your slicer, you put your supports in. From there on, it's hitting print. And a good indication that you're gonna have a good print is if you have a good first layer. Look at your first layer and look for any signs of like warping or the full plastic going through, and you'll notice a distinction. Like you'll see if there's like a hole or something that the printer may kind of run over if it goes onto the next layer, and just look out for those, because if you look out for that, it'll save you the headache of one, you thinking the printer's gonna print like normal, all fine and dandy, and then it starts in the background, and then next thing you know, you have a big glob of just filament sitting here, like the filament glob. There's two things that can happen. You can have a filament glob, or you can have some spaghetti. Spaghettiing is really where it's just like, it'll just think that it's printing on the layer, on the line, and it'll just go, and it'll just go, and just sometimes to the whole print is gone. So you end up wasting filament and time. So going, and then you just have a big ball of this, but finely pressed and unorganized. So that's spaghetti. The blob, oh my gosh, the blob is a nightmare. And that happens really from the same case. It's just like the buildup of filament where snaking is printing and it's not. Or printing accordingly, because it is printing, it's just not printing where it should go. So that is the biggest thing. And it always will occur like right at the nozzle. Oh my gosh, I had one blob that literally took up the entire back part of the my A1 Mini, and it hasn't recovered really since. Like that's also why it's still kind of, I have to tinker with it some more and replace the nozzle, and also the motor, this motor for the extruder. It's right here. So you can actually, these parts right here, you can make out some pieces to go on top of it for when it's spinning. So this is where the filament comes through, and then it'll spin like that. But yeah, this is the guard that comes with it. But this right here is the nozzle, and this piece gets really hot. This piece gets really hot. Oof. Just stay away from don't touch it when it's printing, or even after it's printing. Let it cool down. It will burn. But yeah. That's pretty much like a good, just for the printing. And if I were to get started, the first thing I would make, first design, I would make a keychain. And why do I say make a keychain? Well, one, because I think it's one of the simplest things you can make that can teach you the basics of the software. And the software I'm talking about is Tinkercad. Tinkercad is a very, very straightforward software. Pretty much most things you think of in Tinkercad, you can create. But yeah. looking forward to it, and I'm going to be with you guys on this journey as an artist and a creative. If you have any questions, obviously just comment them. But yeah, I'm gonna get to printing something.